All right, we're live, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Narvios, and you're tuned in to Rise Above the Bar edition of Bring You Justice. It's a show dedicated to law students and the general public by attorneys and legal professionals in order to inspire and promote the positive culture of the law. And today we have a treat. We have attorney Divjyot Singh, who was class of 2018 at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I currently attend Thurgood Marshall School of Law, and he's served as my mentor, personal mentor throughout the course of my career. So it's an honor to have you here, attorney. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me. It's going to be real fun. I'm real excited to do this.
For sure. It's awesome because this is actually the very first episode of Above the Bar. And one of the main things that I love about this concept is the fact that we have an opportunity to inspire law students and inform the general public about some things that they might be curious about, because I personally think that lawyers are awesome. I have a lot of lawyer friends, and man, it feels great to have lawyer friends. You never feel like you're ever going to be in trouble. And
so general public doesn't think that way.
I know. So we're here to do our little part, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So currently, as a law student, I've had quite a journey through law school, and you've been a great mentor to me. So thank you for all that you do, not only for myself, but other students and the public that you serve. And so today I wanted to bring you on the show and start off by really sharing the concept of the journey, because the journey of law school into practice is holistic. There's a lot of trials and tribulation. There's a lot of learning experiences. And so let's start the show with whoever out there is watching, the many people in the audience that are watching. If somebody's wondering, should I go to law school? And they're thinking about entering the legal profession. What is your thought process? What was your thought process in the whole journey to become attorney Divjyot Singh? And then you could sort of tell people a little bit about what you do, who you are, but start off by saying a little bit about what your thought process was to entering law school.
So before, actually, I'm never, I'm not one of those people, who always inspired to be a lawyer, right? So this is not something, which I was always, thought of like this is going to be my dream. It was one of my dreams, but it's such a happenstance thing for me. I was basically, I graduated from U of H, and I have, I had a bachelor's in accounting and supply chain management. And which has nothing to do with law, I guess, and all you're doing is just crunching numbers pretty much. So my family has like a commercial real estate business, so I've been helping them out for a long time. So I did that after pretty much after U of H for a few years, and then kind of like I was getting bored. I was like, this isn't, kind of like, I was like, this is not for me. Got to do something different. So then I thought, okay, the law school, then, actually we ended up getting into like a couple litigations, and, I was involved in the whole process. So I was like, that really intrigued me, this side of the, the business, which was like, the legal side. So I was like, maybe, since, I was thinking about getting a master's, but then I was like, okay, rather than getting a master's, like, why don't, I go get a go get a a legal degree, so just another year, because the master's is usually about 2 years. Right. This was like 3 years, so I was like, why don't I go and do the I'll do the degree, do a law degree. So first thing I needed to find out, okay, how to get to law school, because I had no idea, I didn't know like I didn't know any lawyers or anything. I didn't have any friends, any lawyers. Everybody I knew were either business owners or were either in the accounting field or supply chain field. So I was like, okay. So the first thing I found out, I'm gonna have to take the LSAT. So that's the first, that was the first thing that I started studying for.
The LSAT.
Yeah. LSAT,
so
yeah.
First things first. If you're taking notes out there, number one.
Yes, number
LSAT,
one.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think like I kind of like. For me, I didn't like if somebody who is thinking about law school, I think there are like a bunch of opportunities out there where there might be internships available to go do internships with some some like judges and stuff out there, and maybe like go internships at like like with some lawyers to see if that's something somebody wants to do. I think it probably would help if person want to see what their life's gonna be after 3 years. It
Right.
is it is not those are not fun 3 years. So and then as you already know, so before you embark on that big 3-year journey, it's good to probably kind of see like if you really want to do this. But the overall thing is like the degree of law is such versatile degree. Kind of it's like you can pretty much do a lot of stuff once you get this degree. You become a lawyer. You don't necessarily need to practice as a lawyer once you get a law degree. It kind of gives you a very like a broad perspective on how to think, like problem solving, and how to think in terms of like legally. So it opens up a lot more avenues for you. I mean, a lot of the like we have a lot of politicians these days. Pretty much majority of them are lawyers. you
Right.
know that's one of the huge parts of it's like policy making. So that's another big thing about a law school where it's not just, you're going to be a lawyer. There are other avenues you can actually approach. you know
Right,
so
right.
yeah.
Definitely a lot of politicians, I think the majority of presidents were actually attorneys. And the way to, I guess that's one of the main things that they teach you in law school is they don't just teach you the law, but they teach you how to think like an attorney. So how would you describe that? Like if somebody's wondering, like what does it mean to think like an attorney? What do you think about that?
It's basically the way it's like it's a very they teach us like think very methodically, right, step by step. And the part of those step is not so not assuming anything. So we kind of leave all the assumptions out of our thinking. you know kind of like a great example, always like, was given like, for us was like, you come into a room and you see somebody standing over a body with a knife in their hand, and it's like, there's a blood on the knife. you know your initial thoughts are going to be like, oh, that person killed him. And but that's they jumped to all that conclusion, or they made those assumptions rather than jumping to that conclusion. As an attorney, you will be like, okay, you don't know, okay, did they pull the knife out? Did they got there? What happened? Things like that. That the whole thing. So that's necessarily not that, okay, this person killed him. That's the end of the story. But it's our way of methodically thinking. Okay, what happened? Did he pull the knife, or did they fight, or did this person was trying to save his life? You see. So there's a lot more to the picture. Is basically, so we are taught basically to think very methodically, I guess.
Right. So
So
those of y'all out there that are interested in the legal community, one thing that I didn't know before I got into law school was that attorneys are some of the most friendly, the most helpful people. They'll give you the resources, they'll give you scholarships. They're more than willing to help those that are going through law school simply because they've gone through law school. So it's almost like a fraternity or something like a group of individuals who understand what you're going through and what you're growing through. So if you just ask a lawyer, hey, I'm interested in going into the legal community or becoming an attorney, can I shadow you? Can I ask you a few questions? And a lot of them, 9 times out of 10, they'll be the ones that'll treat you out to lunch. So hey, you get a good lunch. This was definitely giving me a few lunches, man. So I appreciate you for feeding not only my belly but my mind and my soul, brother. So
yeah.
I really just wanted to let people know what the process was, the admissions process, the thought process of growing into an individual that wants to pursue that, because there's a lot of people out there that might have never thought about it, never considered that to be. So if you're out there and you're wondering, if you've never thought about it, think about it, because our profession is pretty awesome. I like the people in the industry, and once again, there are more than enough and abundant attorneys out there that are willing to help. Shout out to all the attorneys out there that are willing to help, that consistently pave the path every single day. So yesterday, Divjyot,
Mhm.
uh, something major happened, right? Just like every law student that ever taken the bar exam, it was one of the biggest days, and it was receiving your score. Either you passed or you didn't. And congratulations to all the February bar takers, those of y'all that passed. I know how hard you worked, and those of y'all that didn't, I also know how hard you worked. Or if you didn't, this time, the next time it's an opportunity, be tenacious and pull through the finish line. I just want to send my love out to all of those individuals. And speaking of bar, once you got into law school, right? So you got into law school, you chose the profession. What is the journey like once you stepped in there? So you went to orientation and you were like, oh, I'm Divjyot Singh and I'm a 1L, the very first year of law school. What was your journey like from 1L to 3L? Take me through 1L, 2L, 3L, so everybody out there knows our 1L audience, our 2L audience, or our 3L audience. They'll understand a little bit about what your journey was like. But take me back through your law school experience, because am I correct when I say that you were valedictorian?
Yes, I was.
Number one, bro. That's a lot. It's an honor to even be a mentee of a valedictorian. And it's kind of like an embarrassment that I'm not the valedictorian. But you know what? Iron sharpens iron. And one of the things that I like to share to law students is that everybody has their own journey and anything is possible. So tell us a little bit about what your journey was, because everybody and anyone can still learn from the mindset that you have, the habits that you have, the concept of discipline that you have, in order to become that kind of a success in law school. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
So like, one of the very first thing, when you go to the orientation, obviously they tell you, how hard this journey is going to be in the orientation, so especially in our school, they kind of laid it everything out, and they told us this is not going to be fun. Doesn't matter, how smart do you think you are, or, how you previously did in your previous, career or previous jobs. This is completely a different ball game, because none of that stuff is really that helpful when you come to law school. So maybe some of it it is transferable, but a lot of it is this is a completely new ball game. So one of the first things you're gonna have you kind of have to do is like you got to unlearn your like bad habits and things like that. So it takes a while to kind of get used to just thinking like a lawyer, as we say, okay, start getting into that mindset. Then okay, and I think that the first thing I had did was I knew, so I was never like as disciplined and when in my undergrad, right? So I was never a very disciplined student. I would study maybe like a week or 2 weeks before the exams, and like on the in the semester I'm just cruising along, as we most of us are in colleges. So that's pretty much how I was. But I mean, this felt different. Like it felt like this is not going to be the same ball game. And then I was like, okay, and then I wanted to get the most out of the most out of my experience in law school, because I also had another I had another motive, because if my thing was like, if even if I don't, if I, I'll see if I want to go pursue, career as a lawyer. If I don't pursue a career as a lawyer, I still want to go back into, commercial real estate. And I wanted to learn as much as I can in law school and take that with me back to that, that aspect as well. So that was, one of my main goals. So that's why, I was really focused on that, I really want to learn rather than anything. And so, one of the first things I did the first year, which I think kind of like solidified me for me the next 2 years, was pretty much every day I would, once I get done with classes, I'll pretty much go to the library, and I will be library till like 10 o'clock. And I'll be, briefing, reading cases. So, I took no shortcuts, which, we have, might have done in college, right? Might have used, kind of like you already have a brief from some somebody who was already been
You remember in college Cliff Notes?
Yeah, exactly. So quit using Cliff Notes and actually doing the work is basically what I'm trying to say. So I learned pretty quickly that okay, that was pretty successful, right? So just studying and reading the cases, synthesizing the casing, And then, going to the class, talking to teachers about that, that actually was, was really helpful. I was never one of those students in college who will ever speak to a professor, will never ask a question. But, I changed that mentality when I came to law school. I was always asking questions to the professors. Whatever, issue, like whatever questions came, whatever issues I had, I always, took it up to them. And, that was, one of the great things, which was part of the learning experience, that, the professors were, they were always so helpful, ready to. So once, I kind of, like the first year, kind of like, then I started figuring out how to study, for the exams. So for my exams, it was the same thing, like whenever the exams were coming, so like, okay, maybe do a lot of practice questions, maybe, because in the beginning there was no point of doing a lot of practice questions, because, you know, because we haven't covered a lot of material, and questions are all over the place, and we don't know the whole concept yet. So it's really hard to to nitpicking, like, one question out of, and then it's kind of wastes his time. So what I was doing, I was focusing more in the beginning on like kind of like theory. So I was reading a lot of outlines and things like that. So Barbary was tremendous, for me. So because Barbary was pretty much the what I used mostly. So, and then in the beginning, I think Themis is good in the beginning. It Themis is like a little bit. It's like a shorter version of Barbary, right? Themis gives you a good, like, kind of beginner's understanding, and Barbary just was, way more depth, as far as understanding the concept when it comes to, when it comes to any concept, basically, So once I kind of like figured that out, I was like, okay, so so then I was like, okay, so then I give my first exams. It's not like I killed my first exam. I think my first exam was like a criminal law, like a written exam, and I think I got like 2 out of 10. So that was like my first exam in law school. I was like, oh, this is not good, you know. And so then, because I had like so much stuff running through my mind in that test, and I was just not able to put everything on paper. And I was just like, oh man, this did not go. I got my score back. I was like 2. I was like, damn, if this set the tone for the rest of my law school career, it's not gonna be good. And we have the curve out. So I was like, oh, I'm like, this is not looking good. I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to go back and reevaluate my strategy. So, but then I noticed that I did a lot better on like started doing a lot better at multiple choice. So that's something which came natural. So like that was always my like, so that's where kind of like I focused a lot then, and then I definitely had to I had to work really hard on my writing. That was something which is I haven't done a lot because of my background in accounting and supply chain. These are not like writing heavy, kind of like writing heavy, professions. Most of us, we're just crunching numbers mostly. So I didn't do a lot of writing in college. So this was definitely a rude awakening that there's going to be a lot of writing involved. So that was another skill I started then working at. So mostly in the first year, then I realized, I think after the first semester is when I realized I was like, okay, maybe I'm like stressing out too much, because I'm like, I'm in the library all day drinking 2 3 monsters, and I'm just sitting there, drinking coffee on top of that. It's just it was just crazy mix up. I'm just there, just all day over there, just studying, through this, and and then like weekends are not yours anymore because you got to study on the weekends as well, and so it's like your whole life just goes upside down. I mean, you have no time to do nothing. You're pretty much married to the law school. So, but the first year, kind of like once I built that discipline, where I could sit down and study for a long time, I kept that up. So that's something when I realized that I could do that, then everything else just started coming. Then the scores came, whatever I had to work on, like different strategies to work on different like subjects, different things, so different things worked for me for different like subject matter. So it's like, whatever worked. So, I started focusing on that. But again, there is no like there is no like like some we have talked about before. There's no like this is like, oh, here's a guide to be successful in law school. This will work for everybody. It's a very individual experience. So you will learn that everybody, but I think that if you build a discipline in the beginning to sit down and do the work in the beginning, and if you build that discipline, that will carry you, a long way through like, through law school then. And then, after my first year, I got my grades back, and, like I did pretty good. I was in the top, well, I made the top 5%. And I was like, I shocked myself, like, nothing remotely ever close. I've ever done that, in any grade or any college or nothing, and I surprised the heck out of myself. But I was like, wait, I made it in the top 5%, and that was, I was like, okay. So I was like, this is doable. So it was like, but at that point, I also figured out, how much I need to study, how to study a little bit better. And then, and I think the one thing I did learn was like, rest was very important. So after the first year, I had like, like literally when my exams got done, I was like done for, a month and a half. I didn't want to do anything. So that's when I realized I'm like, okay, I burned myself out. I got to start resting a little bit. So that's another thing, then I started doing, so, started resting, started, eating a little bit better, you know, started like, like instead of just sitting, all day, on the chair and, like we're just sitting all day, started making sure that I go for walks and stuff. So started doing that, regularly. So that kind of helped a little bit, kind of like de-stress a little bit. So, but once I build that foundation of, if you build that foundation, I mean, the second year, they tell you the second year gets easier. Nah, it doesn't get easier. It's just like now you're, used to the abuse.
Yeah, you've gone through the crucible. Now you can endure the pain. And
Exactly,
what do they say? They say the first year they scare you to death, the second year they work you to death, and then the third year they bore you to death, right?
yeah, pretty much. And by the time you get to third year, you're like, because they're, you're relearning a lot of the concepts.
Uh-huh.
Because they're, because like, like a lot of the concepts overlap in law, right? If I'm gonna use something in criminal law, that doesn't mean it's only gonna be, useful in criminal law. That concept can, like that thought process could also be brought in some other, subject matter as well. So that's the thing. By the time you get to third year, those things started transferring and it starts making sense. You feel like you don't need to be in a class because you can read a book and learn. So that's why it's like the third year feels like a drag. So,
Speaking of third year, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to announce I'm a rising 3L.
well, congratulations, man.
Yeah, man, and I'm gonna be doing my externship with Attorney Singh and his partners
Mhm.
this summer and in the fall. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that you've extended to me for me to be able to apply certain things, so that way I can get in the groove of running my own potential practice in the future. Because y'all have your own practice. Before we get to that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the bar exam, but a little bit about the takeaways of what Attorney Singh has just spoken about. It's about establishing your discipline so you have the foundation to endure whenever it really counts, and then getting good rest. Health is wealth. At the end of the day, what good is it to pass the bar if you are unhealthy and you're suffering from any ailments or sickness? So we want to make sure that not only is your physical health in decent shape, but your mental health, because a lot of times the stress and anxiety can really take a toll. And I've seen that in some of my peers and some of the law professionals out there. I've seen a lot of attorneys resort to alcoholism or other extracurricular activities that they might lean on in order to cope with the stress that they're dealing with. So if you or anybody you know is suffering through that, there's definitely resources out there, and we want to encourage you to walk in a life of less stress, so that way we can walk towards success in a much more pleasant way. So the bar exam, Divjyot, want to make sure that people understand that the bar exam is the largest thing that you can take. I hear that it's a 3-day extravaganza, right? So take us through what it looks like, what it feels like, what was your experience like, and then take us to the battle room, like the war zone. Like, what did you and your friends do to prepare yourself for the bar exam?
So the main, the one main thing, once I got done with law school, like when I got done with law school, I felt like really burnt right after 3 years. And, as you were saying, like the rest is very important, but, it's like there's only so much time in the day. So what I did is since second year, I had externships and like internships. So I constantly interned throughout, after my second 2L year. So, at different places. And, since I was, interning and then also going to school, so, I like there was only so many hours in the day. So, there's only so much you can rest. So, that it starts taking, a toll. But by the time I had gotten to the bar exam, I mean, I was like exhausted and I was like done. But here's the thing, I know I had done a lot in law school. So I had the confidence that, okay, I have done enough in law school. All I need to do now is like study, just review everything, practice a lot of questions, go through a lot of practice material, and I should be fine. So for me, that was it. The question was never like, whether, going to be able to tackle this. The question was like, okay, we just need to put in my time. One thing I did realize was like, if I try to study, 2 weeks before this exam, I know I'm not going to be able to pass this. I knew that for sure. This is something I know I had to study for that good 2 months we had. So, what I did is like, so me and one of my partner, one of my law partners now, Mr. Hernandez, and he lives in Galveston. So I asked him if he wanna, because I like, it's really hard to study at the house, when you have other people around. So I was like, for 2 months, what I did is I rented an apartment. So, and I asked him if he if he wants to join, and then he said yeah. So what we did is he joined us, and then our third partner, law partner, Mr. Perez, he kind of lived like 5 minutes away from the apartment we rented, so he would also come over. So what we did is all three of us studied together in the apartment. So we had a projector in there, and so what we would do is like we will do a lot of questions together, and then we will go through the answers and see what was our different thought process for all three of us, why one got right, other one got wrong. So that way, we kind of looked at three different perspectives as to what's going on with the question. So we did that, and we watched a lot of the videos, a lot of the the review videos together. So that worked for us. Like all three of us passed the first time, and all three of yes. So yeah, so and then all three of us were all three of us pretty much were we put in 2 months we needed to. So we took like a weekend here, a weekend off here and there, when when it was like when you study too much, it's like gets to the point where it's like it's nothing, you're not really learning at that point. So you need to just walk away, give yourself a day and then come back to it. But what we did do is like we knew it required 2 months without any distractions. So for 2 months, I did nothing but study for the bar exam. I focused on it. I did everything. I bought I had the Barbary program, the bar program, bar prep program. So I followed Barbary. I did that, and then on top of that, the one thing which I liked the most was adaptive bar. Adaptive bar, it's like a previous bar exam questions, which has been, have come in previous years. And, so adaptive bar has, adaptive bar, they give you those questions, like actual question rather than like Barbary or Kaplan, which is making up their questions, right? So they're not, over there, adaptive bar is not making up their questions. They're just giving you the same questions which were on previous bars. So to me, that had a lot of value, because it's like, then because when you go to the exam, it doesn't look foreign to you, and some level of familiarity is very important, I feel like, in a bar exam, because like little things will throw you off. Like it is a very stressful environment, right? So it's it's a very stressful 3 days. I mean, this is not like a 1 day 3 hour exam and you come out and you're done, or 4 hour exam and you're done, right? No, you go in the first day, first day is like half a day. So the first day we went in, so after, we studied for the bar exam, for 2 months in the apartment, like, and like, I did for multiple choice, I did like adaptive art and barbary, like pretty much everything. I went through went through a lot, pretty much in like almost 90-95% of it. So did that, and then same thing, with the other essay writing stuff, and then know your strengths and like know your like weakness in the bar. That's very important because the thing is, the problem is, bar covers like way too many topics, right? Covers like 16 odd topics, right? Different subject matters. It's really hard to like have a grasp of everything fully, because the problem happens is like you learn this, and then for a week you've been learning something else. When you come back to that stuff, you have already forgotten it. You're like, oh, I don't know, it's been ages since I looked at it. But because it's like you can't just keep refreshing. Just can't do that. There's not enough time. So that's the problem with the bar exam. So it's like you're learning, and then by the time you get, like a week later, you're like, oh shit, I this, I missed this stuff again. So you have to keep relearning, keep like reviewing stuff, and that's the issue. And there's not that much time. But another thing was like, since like I hadn't taken like few of the courses, like I hadn't taken like a commercial law class. No, not commercial law.
You're talking about like domestic relations and
Yeah, domestic relate family was
family
one.
law.
Yeah, family law. Yeah, family law was one of them. So there's like two. There's like two questions over like family law. So, and I went through the whole like review for the family law. Then I like I read the whole barbary for the family law, but there was not enough time in those 2 months period for me to be 100% like fully like be fully prepared for the bar exam for the for family law. So what I did is then like I narrowed my approach. So what I did is, instead of like learning all these different things about family law, I looked at the previous question, what they mostly test, and I started just like focusing on those areas in family law. So I kind of like narrowed my approach a little bit.
Right. So you would say that the bar exam is really about knowing a little bit of everything, knowing a little bit of a lot, right?
Yeah, so it's a to think about it, it's like a test of your competence, right? So they just want to know that, because they know there are some complex issues and there are some complex answers, right? That's not what they're testing here. They want to see you have a surface level understanding of most of the stuff,
Gotcha.
right? And then also they want, in a way to test, your like, because that how well you can handle a stressful environment, right?
Right.
Think about it, like like lawyers are very, being a lawyer is a very stressful profession, right? Because what happens is like people come to you and they give you their problems, and then now it's your job to solve it for them, right? That's all your profession is. Like you're just constantly solving people's problems. So it could be very stressful because there's a lot at stake. People can lose their houses, and people could be could be sent to jail, things like that. So it's a very stressful job. So people have a lot writing at you. So so there's a so they I think it's also like bar exam in a way tests you that you can take that stress.
Hmm.
That if that because like bar exam is so stressful that once you kind of like go through that type of routine, I guess in a way, then in a way you can handle it, right?
It's like training for MMA or boxing, right? If
Exactly,
you've gone through the training and you've gotten beat up multiple times, then
yeah,
when you get in the ring, that you're ready to be a warrior.
yeah, exactly. It's like like I think it's like I was watching this documentary the other day. It's like for Navy SEALs, they go through something called a Hell Week. So in that Hell Week, they're like trained and trained, and they're only given like 14 hours of sleep or something in the whole week, and they're
And
constantly.
they would do good on the bar exam.
I bet they will. I bet they will. And yeah, I bet they will. But yeah, so so they like they call it a Hell Week. So this is kind of like our Hell Week. Taking the bar exam.
Right, right. Well,
So
good. I mean, I really like your approach, and I like your perspective on how you tie everything together, on how the foundational elements of law school really tie into the bar exam, and then it leads into your profession, because all of it is a holistic approach on analyzing problem solving skills, right? So, uh,
exactly.
speaking of practice, so after you passed the bar, tell us a little bit briefly, how did it feel? Because you seem like such a cool, calm, and collected individual. Like I could just imagine you receiving your bar results. You're like, I already knew up there.
So I actually, I had that. I mean, and at the moment, I didn't want to, like say it, but it's like, I think it was the second day, when I took my multiple choice. So this is what it is. So the first day is half a day, right? You go in. I think we go in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the exam starts at 9 o'clock, and it's supposed to go till like either 12 or 1 o'clock the first day.
Yeah.
So what happened is when we went in there first day, they were having mic issues because it's a big room. It's not. This is not. It's like a big auditorium where they're having this exam. I mean, they're like over probably 1,000 kids there, where I was taking the exam. Probably more than 1,000. So in that one area, we're all there, sitting there, and then like they started having mic issues, and then the exam almost started like a 40 to 45 minutes later, late. So now you think about it. So the way I had done was, so I was like, I bought I rented a motel room, close to the bar exam because I didn't want to travel.
Smart, yeah, smart.
Because it's like, I wanted to take all the anxiety out of the exam, right? So that was one thing I had a plan for that. I didn't want to be anxious that day. Like, I don't want to be driving and be like, oh, I had a, flat tire or something and I can't get there and things like that. So I wanted to be really close to the exam that if something happens, I can always Uber there or something, and be there on time, right? So, and then my first thing was like in the morning, I was like, I want to have a coffee to keep me up. So I had made that plan, I want to have a coffee and I wanted to make sure that, I eat something like very small, right? Because I didn't want to be sleepy through the exam. So see, those things were already planned for me, right? So I did that, and then I also thought about that, the night before I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. Didn't sleep a lick. So I literally was just, in the bed, just waiting on to, just get up and go take this thing. So, you cannot sleep. And man, I mean that I'm thinking it was like one of the only times I think I had to take Tylenol all 3 days. Like that has never happened. It was just such a stressful experience.
Wow.
I literally had to take Tylenol and then I think I also had to take like a Zantac pretty much every day. And I knew a lot of people did the same thing. They had to do
And
it.
so it's whenever you meet an attorney, y'all gotta understand how much they've gone through in order to enter the profession alone. And this guy was a valedictorian and he had to take Tylenols and he couldn't.
No, literally, man. It was like it is very stressful, right? Because
Yeah.
it is very stressful. So go in there first day, they have that issue. We come out, right? So so first day, like so we come out. Like I came out of the exam. I was like, okay, I feel pretty good about it. So I went back to the hotel room and I started working on my. So the next day are multiple choice. So I started. So I did like so like the night before I did like 100 multiple choice. So to get ready for the exam next day, right? So and then after that, the next day now was 8 hours, right? You go in at 8 and you get done at like almost 5 o'clock, and there's an hour break in between. So for that, so what I did is the same routine. In the morning, I took my coffee, ate something very little.
Tell me
I
you
went,
got some sleep that night.
nah, no sleep again.
Oh man.
So and then then I got to the like the break came, and for the break I had made a peanut butter sandwich, and I had another like a coffee. So that's what I had already brought that with me. I had left it in the car. Actually, my my law partner Nick had brought it.
I bet
So
I bet the meal you had afterwards when it was all said and done was amazing.
you know what happened? So after we got done with the bar exam, we were like, I told my partners, I was like, hey, y'all want to go celebrate or something? They're like, nah. They're like, we're just gonna go home. So I was
Go
like, okay.
sleep, go sleep.
So literally, I went home and I went to sleep,
Knocked out. Well,
and I did.
that's awesome, man. I bet it's very rewarding for you and your partners. And speaking of your partners, shout out to attorney Nick Perez and attorney Abraham Hernandez. Like, I feel like I can't even say their names without saying attorney before it now after hearing these stories of the bar exam and having to go through law school, which I'm going through right now, and growing through it's quite the experience. So it's very admirable and inspiring for me to
Mhm.
consistently work diligently, and I know it's inspiring for our audience. So speaking of your partnerships, so these were your partners while you were studying for the bar and throughout law school too, right? And so they eventually became your partner in real life whenever
Uh-huh.
you started your firm. So tell us a little bit about that.
So pretty much, we had talked about this, during law school. I wanted to start, I always, come from a, I told you like my family, has a commercial real estate, business. So I come from a very entrepreneurial background, and that's, that pretty much, my family was the same way. So I was kind of like brought up the same way, So I thought about working for somebody for a little bit, but then the thing was like, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to give time to both work for somebody and then also because I have the real still had to manage the real estate business on the side. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that if I go work for somebody. So for me the most logical thing was to basically have my own practice. So what I did pretty much after then like after law school is like also we during law school we all we used to talk about it like kind of like starting a partnership. So like Hernandez, I used to study with him pretty much every day for 1 hour a year. So like me and him became like kind of like best friends from like and we studied a lot, me and him together. We're like we're like brothers. We're like brothers now. So yeah, man, we studied and we gelled well. I know I can have a conversation with him. We have very we can we critique each other, which was very important to me because I don't want somebody who's always gonna like always just gonna be like, yes, let's just do this, or don't do this. Like he always had a good critique, and he always will speak his mind. And so for those were some of the things I was like, okay, I want that type of person, in like a law type of environment, with a public and law partnership. And then Mr. Nick, I kind of got it. I think me and Nick kind of became more friends like during 2L year. So like we had a couple classes together, so we started studying together. So I saw we gel pretty well, and then after that we had me and him had a pretty good friendship. He actually came to my sister's wedding in India. So during 2L year after we took our finals, and after that, yeah, me and him went to India to attend my sister's wedding.
Did he rock a Sherwani?
Oh yeah, yeah, he had
Yeah.
a sherwani and a turban and everything.
Nice, nice.
So yeah, so so we went over there for like almost like 3 weeks. So
Oh,
yeah,
that
that
must have been an awesome experience.
yeah, it was a good experience, and it was like pretty good also bonding experience for
Right,
so
right. So after you were able to bond with Nick and develop a relationship with him and really understand the different personality traits like that Abraham had, so y'all
yeah,
decided to form a group, a collective that became your practice today. So
exactly.
what would you say to our audience a little bit about the concept of teamwork, right? So how important is it for teamwork to be a part of your business? And then also like what are some things you would recommend to anybody that would be interested in starting their own firm?
So with it's like you got to understand is like like we all like I know like a lot of people want to go start a law firm when when we leave law school. One of the one of the main thing one of the main thing one of the main thing is um like one of the main thing is like you got to understand is like there's a business of law and then there is a practice of law. So those are two very different things, right? So those are not synonymous. They have nothing to do with each other, right? So because I went to, I was lucky enough to go to business school. So I understand, like a business needs to have certain things. There needs to be a certain foundation to a business. So you got to have your business strategy first down, you know, and then, as you kind of practice more or, you go, become more seasoned, you keep developing your strategy, but you got to have some foundation there, right? It's the same thing, in law school, you have to, there has to be some type of foundation you build. So you got to have some type of foundation, what type of business you want to run. So for us, we knew like we didn't want to work out of, our houses in the beginning, like from like in the beginning, like not trying to rent an office or something because it could get very expensive, and I understand, but we wanted to make sure that we were set the proper way. So we did that. We went ahead and we invested some of our money, into the firm and set up the business properly, then we knew the first thing was getting everything. So what we did in the beginning was like, okay, so once we found out we passed the bar exam, and the day we found out, I think 2 days later, I think we filed our no, we got sworn in first, and then after we got sworn in, we filed our LLC paperwork,
That's
PLC.
your certificate of formation.
Yes, so we
Shout out to business associations.
so we did that, and that was the very first thing we did. So after we formed the business, then the next thing we had to do was like look for a space. So we went to look for a space, and at the
And
same time,
I have to say that your space is very impressive. Being right out the gate, it's impressive. Y'all, their space is beautiful. It's located off of Richmond and Kirby, right? Kirby area.
yeah, yeah,
What is the address if anybody wants to stop by and visit with you or consult with you?
Oh, it's our office address is 2990 Richmond Avenue, and we are in Suite 500.
Yeah, it is definitely sweet, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you got a beautiful office.
Yeah, and then the next thing we were like, because like we're in the age of technology, so we wanted to be one of those firms which is like, as much as we are paperless.
Right.
So that's something we wanted to focus on because we didn't want to have we don't want to have like too much because it saves a lot of overhead not having a lot of paper, right? But at the same, so we thought like that was the way we wanted to go. We wanted to build a very technologically savvy practice. So the next thing is we invested, we bought we bought a software to practice, to handle our clients, to handle accounting, to handle billing, invoicing, and then also to handle some of our like legal work.
Mm-hmm.
So that we bought a client management software. We did that. That was that we did that.
Right.
So that way, that's another like a big daunting thing for a lot of people because it's like you have this monthly bill then because you don't just buy the software. You have to have it's like a monthly license. So you're paying monthly every month. So that's another big expense for and then we knew if we wanted to be if we wanted to do it right, we had to do it. So we went ahead and so we started the business properly. That was the whole thing. What I'm trying to get at. And then the next thing is, man, just get try to get out there and then try to get business. I mean, that's it.
Right.
And then so it's like that's another thing. So it's like yeah, you can get out and become a lawyer and open up a practice, but now how are you gonna get business?
Right. And so that's one of the things that I realized, coming from my background, like networking is key, from a marketing standpoint and entertainment that I come from, getting to know and building relationships and developing these bridges are key to the success of any business. And that's one thing that I notice about you is that you're open always to networking, always giving back to the school, going to judge different competitions, whatever value you provide other people, that's what's contributing to the success of your business and your practice. And I really like how you distinguish the difference between business law, the business of law, and then the practice of law. Because like a lot of lawyers, they know how to practice the law, but what's the point of practicing the law if you can't practice it with a client, right?
Exactly.
And so that's very important. I really like that. So what is the most rewarding, do you have like a rewarding experience with your job? Like, I know that fulfillment and purpose is a big deal to a career and like the direction of your destiny, right? So what is something that is pulling you towards your line of work, and give us an example of a very rewarding experience?
So like one of the things I've noticed, because it's like even like from the background I come from, uh, there's not like that many lawyers actually, probably like even in city of Houston or like in state of Texas, who can speak, I speak Punjabi, right? But like so there's not that many lawyers who does that, right? So what I've seen is like personally when you deal with clients, who primarily speak one language, and and they have a hard time, like things get lost in translation is what I'm trying to get at. So for those people, having an attorney who can understand their language kind of like sometimes helps a lot. So that was, that I've seen that, helping out a lot. Even like, so what I do is I try to help out, like people in the community who just have questions, right? So not necessarily they're not even my clients, but the rewarding experience, we're talking about rewarding. The rewarding experience is like I can answer their question and kind of like, give them a clear answer, which kind of puts them at ease, right?
Right,
So
because lawyers are also known as counselors. They call us counselors, and
yeah,
you and I were having a conversation yesterday, and as you were saying, like sometimes somebody just wants to be heard, and somebody
yeah.
just wants to know that everything's gonna be okay, and that's really cool that you can provide that.
Yeah, and sometimes the thing is like, like we have had times where like, the client thinks there is an issue or there is a legal problem, but there is not a legal problem yet. So then, you can kind of tell them, in a way to how to avoid it. So rather than, like not all lawyers' job are reactive, right? So some lawyers are, like some you hire, some people have lawyers as proactive, rather than a reactive approach. And by that I mean is, like you don't only hire a lawyer when there's something gonna go wrong. If you're doing like let's say you're forming a business, right? And you're filing your LLC paperwork and things like that. Like make sure you go to a lawyer and let them do that. Let them create a bylaws for you to solidify your company's kind of like the at least the foundation. So it's like you have to make sure that you do a little bit of that stuff, because then later on in the road, if you get sued or something, you're protected because you have followed the steps from the get-go. But like sometimes what time I've seen people do is like they save money. They kind of like they file them themselves, or they hire like some like there are people who offer these services who are not lawyers,
Right.
and they don't know what they're talking about, right? So and then end up doing this, and then when the client by the time comes to us, now it takes way more money to fix it than it would have costed them in the beginning, to have it done it right.
To do it
So
right, it's almost like getting a suit made, right? Like if you want to save money with the gentleman who wants to give you a good like a cheap rate, but he's
mm,
using cheap fabric and he's skimping out on his threads, then you're gonna have to buy 10 suits that year than you are wearing one suit for the next five, right?
yeah, no, it's absolutely, so it's like that's why, it's like it's very important. Like people think of us as more reactive, but
Right.
there are proactive ways of having it. So I'm like little I'm like a transactional attorney, right? So like we have a general practice, where our focus we focus a lot on real estate, because and then but we do practice other areas as well, because like we do have like that, we're doing some divorces, we have some personal injury cases. So and we have some immigration cases, so we do a little bit of that stuff too, but like but our main focus is on real estate and like business. So like so a lot of the transactional work is like actually proactive. So it's like you're hiring a lawyer to do everything up front to make sure all the contracts are right, everything is in place, so when the dispute arises, that you are covered.
Right.
So it's very important, like
And I'll tell you what,
mhm,
like the peace, you cannot buy peace of mind. Peace of mind is so priceless, especially when it comes to running a business, because when you have an attorney on your team, you have somebody not only covering the business element of it, but you're also handling the legalities, the potential problems and issues that you may face. That stuff is priceless, especially when you fall out and your partner accidentally takes 80% of your company and leaves you with the debt, right? So there's a lot of horror stories out there, and
mhm,
the proactive approach and the preventative approach
mhm,
is very important. It's like very similar to your body. When if you don't take the preventative measures to take care and you're eating a Snickers bar a day,
mhm.
eventually you're going to catch diabetes. So there's like you got to be preventative with this, and that's what lawyers do. So you, to reiterate, your focus is business and real estate transactions.
Yes, so we do a lot of that. So we also do like not like we also do a lot of that stuff, also like residential stuff as well. So like
Gotcha.
residential, so anything which relates to property or business, like we're pretty much handling it, you know. But we
Gotcha.
also have, you know, but right now, you know, we have a general practice though.
Right. Well, Attorney Singh, man, y'all are doing a great job. It's your first year, and it's very inspiring for me to witness because I get a chance to start with you in the first chapters because
Yeah.
y'all are definitely headed to the top. So tell the people how they can get in touch with you and your team if they have any issues, any questions, consultations.
You know, they can, you know, go to our website, sphlaw.com,
Mhm.
and, you know, and then, you know, they can find us that way, or it's the Singh Perez Hernandez PLLC, you know, the law of the name of our law firm, and it's on Richmond and Kirby, 2990 Richmond Avenue.
And a phone number? Do they have a phone
Yeah,
number?
and the phone number is 281 429 8083.
Once again, that's 281-429-8083, right?
Yeah, so that's
And
like,
I'll put that up on all the comments in the area where we put the information so that way y'all can get in touch. And once again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that attorneys are busy, but they are friendly when it comes to contributing to law students and people that are curious about pursuing this type of career. So, man, it's been a wonderful conversation, brother. I just want to let everybody know that we are going to have this conversation more often. Tentatively, we will be having this conversation every Saturday night at 7 p.m. That's what I have it set. This is our first episode of Rise Above the Bar edition of Bring You Justice, a show dedicated to law students and the general public by attorneys and legal professionals in order to inspire and promote the positive culture of the law. My name is Jim Narvios. I'm an aspiring attorney, and I'm inspired today by attorney Divjyot Singh. Thank you so much, my brother, for joining me and adding value to everybody's life. I just want to let everybody know if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Feel free to contact Divjyot Singh. And ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, are you living your life? And are you surrounding yourself with the right people that are bringing you justice? Attorney Singh, be blessed.
all right. Thank you,
Take
Jim.
care, brother. All right, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.